be doing this solo today. We asked if Aaron would come and talk a little bit about the ways that Carnegie Hall is thinking about using internet to and possibly engaging with this community.
Good morning. I am Aaron Levine. I'm the CIO at Carnegie Hall in New York. Sarah Johnson, our director of the Wild Music Institute, was supposed to be the principal speaker for our presentation, so she's not here. She is ill and she sends her regrets, and you're stuck with me. But I will tell you that I recognize that it is me who is standing between you and lunch. So I will be as brief as I possibly can be, and hopefully interesting. I want to also point out Chris Amos, our Director of Distance Learning, who has just joined us from the Philadelphia Orchestra. He may be familiar to some of you who have been working with the Philadelphia Orchestra's Internet 2 program. A bit about Carnegie Hall. We're a pretty old place. Room for a mouse up here. This is how Carnegie Hall looked when it was opened in 1891. It looks pretty much the same, although it has transformed over the past few years. The next rendition of Carnegie Hall, you can see, added offices up top, and throughout the decades, additional buildings were added and additional towers. Carnegie Hall's mission, and I'll read it to you because I don't want to get it wrong. Carnegie Hall's mission is to present extraordinary music and musicians on the three stages of this legendary hall to bring the transformative power of music to the widest possible audience, to provide visionary educational programs, and to foster the future of music through the cultivation of new works, artists, and audiences. So about 3 months' work by the word. As you can see, it's not just putting on concerts for Carnegie Hall. Part of our core mission is music education and also making our programs available to the widest possible audience. If you've been to New York, this would be a familiar sight. This is one of our three halls, Isaac Stern Auditorium. Our middle hall, Zankill Hall, which is the wired hall in our venue that we use to produce distance learning events, and the smaller Wild Recital Hall. In these three halls, we present roughly 800 concerts per season. The season is about 42 weeks. We have to close during most of the summer in order to keep the old place going. So it's a lot of concerts in a compressed period of time. We're a producing organization. We produce about 250 of those 800 concerts, and the rest of them are made up from outside producers and folks who come in and who rent the hall. The Wild Music Institute is Carnegie Hall's education arm. And in the Wild Music Institute, if I can get it straight, there are roughly 10 major education programs ranging from kindergarten age all the way through professional training workshops for professional musicians. We also have some online programs. We have listening adventures for grade school kids, and we have performance guides with heavy video coaching segments for professional musicians looking to get the insights of some acclaimed musicians. We also do about 60 neighborhood concerts per year throughout the 5 boroughs of New York, roughly 60 per year, and they're free. What I want to talk about a little bit in terms of where we've been is our distance learning programs. Some of you got a sheet that Chris handed out that summarizes the 14 distance learning programs that we have done since 2003. I'm sorry I didn't make enough for everybody. I miscounted. They've ranged from simple webcasts to extravagant productions in multiple locations. And before I try to describe them any further, let me show you a quick clip from one from our event with South Africa. Let's see if I can get the audio. Nobody can hear anything. We typically do about, stop this before once again. We typically do one large international event each year. Next year our plan is to try to jump up to 4. We do a number of domestic events as well. We've done distance rehearsals led by Dr. Craig Jessup of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir with as many as 4 far ends. And a lot of other different events. If you didn't get the handout, just leave me your email address, and I'll be happy to send it. So we're looking to expand our programs as part of our mission to reach out to the widest possible audience. And we are looking at Internet too. And if you didn't know, we aren't currently members. We're hoping to be very soon. We're looking at Internet 2 as a way to reach an audience that we can't reach right now with the technology that we have in place. Well, we could reach them, but the costs of doing so are far, far beyond what we can reasonably afford to pay. We're in the process now, though, of trying to identify the Internet 2 audience in a context that's meaningful to Carnegie Hall. David Herring, in the first presentation, said one of the most important things was to know your audience, and I think that's absolutely correct. And we do know our audience in terms of the hundreds of thousands of people who come to the hall every year, and the people who participate in our education programs. And roughly, we serve, with music education programs, about 33 to 35,000 students and teachers per year, so it's a pretty big population. With Internet 2, the notion of connecting with the university communities and the K-12 schools that are associated with the gigapops and with the universities is very appealing to us. But we don't know enough about it, and one of the things that Sarah was going to ask, and that I will ask in her stead, is if any of you can offer us a sense of what the Internet 2 community would expect from a partner like Carnegie Hall. What are the programs that are needed out there? How can we incorporate the things we do with the curriculum that's out there in K-12 and in university, specifically in music programs in universities. Our plan is to continue actual distance learning events that are similar to the clip, but also to transmit concerts in a limited way because of licensing and rights and all the other things that go along with it. We have an in-house ensemble known as Ensemble ACJW. ACJW stands for the Academy, a program of Carnegie Hall, the Juilliard School, the Weill Music Institute, and the New York City Department of Education. And it's a mouthful, which is why we call it ACJW. In this program, there are 15 to 20 fellows admitted each year. It's a performance and teaching program. They perform in Zankel Hall and at the Juilliard School, and they're all assigned public schools to spend an entire school year with, to work with the music programs, or in some cases establish music programs in schools that don't currently have one. They also play together, and their concerts are often in Zankel Hall. And one thing that we were thinking about doing was to stream their concerts, but stream them in a kind of a package where there's a context for the music that's being played and the composers and the theme of the program and so forth. But we have no idea if anyone will watch. They're pretty expensive. So again, if I see Ann Doyle sneaking into the room. Ann and I have been discussing this for about a decade, Ann?
Just about.
So if you can help us in any way, feel free to either give me a call or send me a note or stop me afterwards. I'll be around all afternoon, because we're really interested in hearing what you want and what your affiliates want, so that we can put together a program that's useful and that will be consumed. 5 minutes to go before lunch. Any questions?
Yes, I think the content is compelling, especially with the upgraded bandwidth you could offer, performances in HD. There is a waiting audience. I know the research channel, we're looking to add humanity, effort in greater humanities. So I think the content itself is compelling for the community.
Thank you.
You might want to consider not just the performances themselves, but a curriculum around the preparation of the performance and what it takes to be a member of that, have that type of job, a career in music or in performing arts. I'm speaking for the K-12 audience. Interaction that can take place between musicians, so that they sort of know who's on stage when the concert takes place, and there's a personal relationship involved there. I think you can do that with a network in ways that you just can't do with TV broadcast. And to leverage that somehow might be a nice efficient plan.
Thank you. That's a really good idea. Yes, in the back.
As a pretty major content consumer, we lack a lot of resources in the arts, and I'm kind of afraid to open this can of worms too far. But one of the biggest problems with working anything in the arts is that you get into copyright in multiple, and ownership in multiple dimensions, and especially when working with groups that are performing. There's so many mouths to feed that, I mean, we can pretty much pay for Stephen Hawking to come and do a speech before we can pay for having a performance or use a performance that requires royalties and all these other things. I'm kind of curious, how are you dealing with that on the other side? How are you dealing with your artists, and how receptive are they to being in this medium? Because in general, we haven't had a lot of luck with that.
I will tell you, in the commercial context, we're not doing anything at all. It's way too labor intensive. And a little vignette, we have a listening adventure on our website, The Animated History of Carnegie Hall, in which we incorporated 33 separate music clips. It took us about 7 months, not too fast of a speed, to build the website. It took us 3 years to clear the 33 clips. So it's what you're saying is exactly the problem. We are finding, though, that in an educational context and in a mode that limits the shelf life of any particular piece, artists and also publishers and composers, and especially the unions, are at least open to discussing a different way to go about this. We don't charge anything for our education programs. It is completely no revenue stream, and I think that that will make it a little easier. It's still not going to be easy, but it will make it a little bit easier for us to be more active in the online and distance learning spaces. Our goal for next year is 20 performances. We've never done more than 4, so we'll see if anybody's alive after the 20.
I think there's a real market for your content if you can figure out how to get that interactively back to those arts teachers, because right now there's very little in that space for them. I mean, we can go all day to a science museum and we can do open heart surgery, we can do those kind of things, and we can repeat those programs pretty often. But we have a real hard time because the only ones that seem to be are one-to-many conferences in this type of event, like you were doing with Philadelphia. We've been participating with that at Discovery World in Milwaukee and some of those folks. But we do one-to-many, and it's not very personal, and it doesn't come into the classroom at the time the teacher needs it. But I think those are the kind of things, if you can do one-to-one classroom experiences and you can figure out how to do that, that's stuff that I know they'd really love to have in the arts, because we just don't have a lot of resources for those people. And it's been that the artists have kind of been self-defeating and with all the unions and the copyright and everything else.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we wrap up?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I wanted to thank all of our speakers who joined us today. I think this was a really fabulous morning. At least for me, it really flew by. Just a couple of wrap-up comments. This afternoon we reconvene for the K20 business meeting at 1:30. We'll be back in this same room. That's our opportunity to really think about some of what we've heard today, as well as other projects we're working on, and how to engage a broader audience in some of these rich opportunities that you heard about today. Any of our presenters, if you're interested and you want to join us, feel free. We understand too if you've had enough sitting for one day, but you're welcome to join us. James,
just that we'll post the slides and we'll follow up.
We'll have all the slides and we'll get the URLs that the folks in the UK mentioned and so on, and those will all be on the site. And Emily back there has been nice enough to be taking notes today. So